say a big welcome to the first Microsoft Cloud Security User Group, and thank you for attending. Really appreciate it. So it's really great to be sponsored by HTG. So yeah, really pleased about that. And we've got a really good lineup today. So kind of just get kind of a bit of an introduction out the way. So I'm going to hand over to Chris quickly. He can explain our social media competition.
Okay, guys, so tonight we've got a little bit of a prize from our sponsors, HTG. And what we want you to do, don't worry, I'll paste the text into the chat, is if you're on Twitter, if you can send out a tweet, and obviously LinkedIn, for each social media platform that you send this out on, you'll get one entry onto the prize wheel. So if you only tweet it, you get one entry. If you do both, it's two entries on the prize reel, and that will be drawn later on during the presentation and towards the end, just before the quiz. So a massive thank you to HTG for the support and giving us some prizes for us and some swag.
Yeah, no, big thanks for that, because it's great to have something to start off with as well. And we've got a quiz at the end of the session as well. So first off is our code of conduct. So just really I won't read it line for line, but just really, we're inclusive and diverse community. We're here, the main purpose is to learn and grow in the area of Microsoft Cloud Security, and that's really key for us. And be available for everyone to kind of have their own input, whatever level they are at. So yeah, that's. And then really just wanted to do a bit of an intro on each of us. So I'm Charlie Goff. I work for Open Systems, which is an MDR provider based out of Zurich in Switzerland and based in the US as well. So I'm a senior cloud solution architect, security architect for them. I've been involved in kind of the cloud community now for probably actively probably the last year, and kind of getting more and more involved in areas. I want to help and give back on how I've got into cloud, really, and how I've got into technology, because the only way I've learned is from other individuals. So I'm based in Taunton in Somerset in the UK, and got family with 3 boys. So yeah, very hectic life, and yeah, just glad to kind of get this off the ground and move it forward, really. And great to have Chris on board as well. You're on mute, Chris.
What a great start, eh? Yeah, so I'm Chris Wright from Liverpool in the UK. If I'm sure some of you guessed with my accent. Currently an Azure SME for HTG, and they're based up in the northeast, just outside Newcastle. I've been there for around 6 months. Discovered the community just over 12 months ago, and just sort of ran with it. Got more and more involved in the community, and discussions with Charlie, we decided to set this user group up and focus on security, and particularly the Microsoft security stack. It's something that we're both particularly passionate about, and we want to try and learn, share, and also try and grow this community for all you guys. But it's a community, you know, it's not just me and Charlie. It's here for us all. Massive thank you for you guys that have joined tonight as well, and we hope to do many more of these events online. And also we will be looking at doing some in-person events. Yeah, me and Charlie have got some discussions to do around that, but you know, hopefully some of you can actually join us in person as well.
Yeah, that's the aim. And like Chris said, it's around the Microsoft security stack. For me, it's somewhere where I've always seen kind of a lack of kind of knowledge, understanding, and a massive growth area for Microsoft, and especially with Azure and the M365 stacks coming together now more and more. So it's something that I feel that really there's a big gap in the market for, and kind of hopefully we can try and fill that and let everyone gain some more knowledge and build up and provide more secure cloud environments. So agenda today is very much, we're doing some, as we've done, welcome and introductions. And then we've got Dwayne, who's going to be doing a session on path to cloud security certification. And after Dwayne, we've got Radu, who will be doing a session on COVID-19 being a cloud security catalyst. Then once Radu's finished, we'll have a quiz where there'll be another prize available, and then kind of we'll hopefully close by 10 o'clock tonight. So just, yeah, it's like I say, can't reiterate how much it's great to have you guys on board. So, and finally, kind of, hopefully we'll pop this up again at a later point, but it'd be great to kind of get your feedback. It's our first group, so we want to learn. We want to know what suits you guys, what is very much what things you would like to see us kind of have on these sessions and make them relevant. So I think we're a little ahead of schedule, but if Dwayne's ready, I think we can pass straight over to Dwayne.
Great. Yeah, let me get sharing going here. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Great to be great to be the native presenter, kicking this all off for you guys. So very cool. Great to be part of this community, part of this user group. Thanks for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dwayne Natwick. I'm going to talk about path to cloud security. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I just noticed right before you asked me to share that I had the wrong title and company here. I'm actually a product manager now at CloudReach, which is it's a multi-cloud service partner. I've also been a cloud training architect at Agility. I've been in multiple different roles and do a lot of training, curriculum, writing, and everything. And my socials are on this slide. We're going to talk about cloud security, particularly around Microsoft here in this quick session. I have accumulated all of the Microsoft security certifications, so I can and have taught them all, so I can really talk at length about them. But we'll get to the overview of them for the most part. I've also recently completed the SC300 exam prep guide for PACT Publishing, and I also am currently about 4 chapters away from finishing an SC900 guide for them as well. So we're going to go through. I'm going to take you through the security landscape of Microsoft. One of the things, and especially now that I've gotten involved in AWS and Google, being with CloudReach. What I've found, and the really interesting thing about what is that Microsoft is the only one of the 3 cloud providers that has a very broad depth of security certifications. So no matter what your direction, what your passion is or what you want to do. If you want to get into security within Microsoft, there are a lot of different paths that you can take, and we're going to talk about that here in this session. So let's look at the path here, and this is really where I wanted to kind of start, and then we'll kind of dig a little bit deeper into each one of these a little bit. So there are currently 6 certifications that encompass security within Microsoft, whether it's Microsoft 365 or Azure or both. The fundamentals, and like with most of the Microsoft certification paths, they all start with a non-prerequisite fundamentals exam, right? Which is the SC900. And this here is kind of my my recommended guide if you're looking to do something with within Microsoft Security in terms of what the direction that you might take. Choose your own path. As you can see, there's a lot of arrows on here. And I kind of outline it. And usually when I talk to people in training classes, that they ask, what path should I take? The best way is to think about it in an Azure path or a Microsoft 365 path. And so once you do the fundamentals, which covers both, at a high level, you should get an idea of, especially if you're new to Microsoft Cloud, which path or which direction you might take. If you're taking a Microsoft 365 path, you head up to the top here, and you go for the Microsoft 365 Security Administrator Associate if you want a broad breadth of certification. Same thing with down at the bottom here for Azure. AZ500 gives you both of these give you a very broad breadth across all of the security capabilities, whether it's identity, whether it's information protection, for Azure network and database protection, container security. Those are both very broad certification paths, or very broad associate certifications that really give you an in-depth around everything that's in both of that's in those areas, whether it's of Microsoft 365 or Azure. Then you take that path, and then now you're starting to think of, okay, am I going to specialize in certain areas? And whether you're Microsoft 365 or Azure, I recommend the SC300, and not just because I wrote the book, but Azure Active Directory and Identity is an extremely important thing to understand, as well as hybrid identities. And the SC300 exam is really the only one that really gets really deep into everything that has to do with identity. Up at the top, the SC400, the SC400 has become kind of a not as talked about certification as in terms of the SC exams, but it's still a very important one. There's a lot of duplication in the MS500 for the SC400, but the SC400 does go a lot deeper into things like information protection policies and data loss prevention and sensitivity labels and those type of things. So that's a good one to take, especially right after the MS500. It's a good one to go on. As we approach the end of our journey and talk about, and then we have the SC200. So if you're somebody that's getting into security operations across, and maybe a SOC analyst or something like, and that's what you want to do. You want to do you want to do threat hunting. You want to respond to incidents and analyze your threat intelligence and get really deep into all of those things. That's where the SC200 comes in. And the SC200, and the reason why the paths kind of converge here at the SC200 is, again, Microsoft 365, Azure, as well as a third party logging all feeds into Microsoft Sentinel, which is about half the exam. But this exam really focuses on the whole Defender suite, which includes Microsoft Defender for Cloud and everything under that, as well as Microsoft 365 Defender. And then the last one here, we'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide, but just a little sneak peek here. I'll let everybody know that there is an upcoming expert in security coming forth, and that'll take me to my next slide here. So as we go down this path, and if we think about the way that Microsoft's kind of heading in terms of their certifications, at least what they've done with the developer expert and now the solution architect expert. You have an associate prerequisite, and then you have your exam to get the expert certification. A little bit different from Microsoft 365 path. There's a group of prerequisites and then 2 exams that you have to take to get your Microsoft 365 expert. But there is a new exam on the way. I don't know how many of you have heard these rumblings, but there is a SC 100 exam that will be coming out in the near future that is going to be a path to get a security expert certification within Microsoft. What it looks like is any one of these exams here in the middle. So the 200 and the 300 in the SC series, or either one of the 500 exams would be a associate prerequisite to getting the expert once you've passed the SC 100 exam, which I'll tell you is a fun one. I've actually been helping write the exam this week. So just right before I joined you guys, I had just gotten offline from evaluating questions and writing questions that we've been doing all week. So really exciting though. Again, like I said, if you've been around any of AWS or Google or any of the other hyperscalers, Microsoft really has created a very strong certification path strictly around security that none of the other providers have. There is a security specialty within AWS. There's a security professional certification within Google, but that's more or less it. You have one path to take. It's generally a generalist exam, similar to like the AZ 500, really. But it's kind of a combination. The Google one's kind of a combination, I think, of like the AZ 500 and the SC 200 a little bit, because there's a lot of things around logging and events in that one. But again, really strongly baked out. And like I said, you can choose your own path really in terms of what you want to be. And if you're heading towards an expert, you don't need all these certifications. Mainly, I have them just to teach the courses, but they're all great in their own regard. And so, I've talked about the path and the goals, and we can go a little bit deeper into some of these as we go through. But I'll pause real quick just to see if there's any questions or anything anybody has before I continue on and kind of break out a little bit more detail around each one of these. Anybody have any questions?
I think we're clear there in the chat, Dwayne.
All right. So what I kind of went through why we would choose each one of these, but let's kind of break. If you're not familiar with each one of them, let's break out kind of like what the dimensions are around them, and really the objective areas and how they're broken out. So the SC 900, most of these have. Most exams, if you've taken any Microsoft exams, you should be familiar with how the objective areas work. When you go onto the exam page on Microsoft Learn, there's a list of objectives. You can go a little bit deeper and bring up a PDF document that has each of the areas under each of these objectives, and there's a weight to each of them. And you can see, for the SC 900 exam, it's pretty equally weighted. It's very similar to, if you look at the AZ 900 exam or the MS 900 exam, there's a concepts section that's not as highly weighted as the others, just because it's not specific around Microsoft technology. But those concepts kind of intertwine to a lot of the other objective areas. And then we have, and since the SC really is is SCI, which is security, compliance, and identity, you have 3 areas within the SC 900, the fundamentals exam. One's identity, one's security, one's compliance. So you go through identity is everything Microsoft 365, security is everything that's securing your environment, compliance is everything that's making sure you're compliant to regulatory standards or business requirements for protecting data and things of that nature. So, and each one of these areas have both Microsoft 365 and Azure solutions within the criteria as you break out each of these. And when I think about each one of these, I kind of think about, well, okay, where do they fall into kind of your defense in depth security posture? And really, like I said, SC 900 covers really everything within that security posture, except for the physical, because obviously Microsoft, Microsoft takes responsibility in the Microsoft environment for the physical. But because this is Microsoft 365 as well as Azure, goes through all of them. Next up is the Microsoft the MS500, the Microsoft 365 Security Administrator. This one's a little bit different. You can see it's a little bit more equally weighted across each of these. We again, both of the MS and the AZ500, you'll see identity and access. You can't talk about security or anything within either Microsoft 365 or Azure without talking about Azure AD. So you get into that, we get into threat protection, we get into information protection, we get into governance and compliance. So some of those areas around the SC 900, where if you notice, these are implements, where the SC 900, it's all describe. All the fundamentals exams are described. We're not implementing, we're not designing anything. The MS500 is where you need to know how to implement. So you need to know some hands-on, all associate exams, you start getting into hands-on compliant, hands-on capabilities, how you're going to deploy, DLP policies, and what you're going to do to, how you're going to manage your identities, are all within the MS500 exam. And when we look at the defense in depth, since it is MS500 and it's SaaS based, there's no real perimeter network security we get into. We get into identity and access. Compute's a little bit different here. I have compute in here because there are some capabilities now within information protection to utilize Azure Purview for sensitivity labeling and data loss prevention policies, and there's some tie-ins with cloud apps in here. So I have all that in as well. Got an echo from somebody here. Hold on. Oh, there we go. All right. AZ500. So AZ500, again, very similar to the MS500, but this is Azure specific. So if you've chose your path to go to the Azure route, again, you're going to have a good portion of Azure Active Directory. But then we get into platform protection. So we're talking about databases and Kubernetes and virtual machines. We're going to talk about we do get the AZ500 gets into security operations. And as well as securing data, so storage accounts and again database, different types of databases, and all of that fall into this exam. Again, associate level exam. You're going to need to know a level of hands-on for this one as well. Really, all of these, and this one gets a little bit broader. Again, this is similar to the SC 900. We're covering all the areas of defense in depth. We're just covering them deeper than we covered in the fundamentals exam. And these are some of just the technologies that you get into within the AZ500. I'm going to skip that. Next one up, the SC300. So the SC300, again, interesting thing on this one, I was actually involved in the worldwide learning review of these objective domains last week, and this will be adjusted a little bit in the near future, where we put a little bit more meat to the app access management. So we should see these percentages adjust a little bit more, just to add a little bit more percentage to the access management for apps as we go forward. But again, this one's specifically around identities, but it's identities around all of your your hybrid infrastructure, your application management. Defender for Cloud Apps is in there, so there is some applications both in Azure and Microsoft 365 that come into play, and again, governance strategies, and again, implement, plan, and implement. When you see the associate exams, you see much more of those, and especially an administrator exam, you need to know how to implement, plan, and manage those areas. And this one really hits identity and access solely within here. You're talking completely about identity and access. So if you're an identity and access administrator, this is definitely a good exam for you. The SC 400 exam. This one, like I said, this one's a little bit more compressed. Like even if you were to take a class for the SC 400, it's actually only a 2-day class. But it really gets deep into data loss prevention, information protection, and information governance. Those 3 areas are what this exam is completely made up of. It's protecting your data and protecting your information. And if anybody's and it's really Microsoft 365 focused. There's really right now not a whole lot around Azure. Now, like I said, Azure Purview is coming into play and giving you capabilities to do these 3 things with your data, with your SQL databases and your storage accounts, and tying those into this as well. So there is beginning to be more tie-ins and integration between Microsoft 365 and the Azure environment. So again, if information protection and information governance and making sure that that there's no data leakage, that data is not being overshared and things like that are part of of your interest and of your what you want to get into, what your responsibilities are, this is definitely a prime exam for you. And this really focuses specifically on data when you're thinking about your security posture. The last one of the specific exams that are released to talk about is the SC 200. And like I said, this one is another one that is that has both Microsoft 365 and Azure specifics to them, but this is really focused on analyzing and protecting and mitigating against threats. And you can see this one is almost 50%. This needs to be adjusted name-wise. I forgot to do that. And the slide was written before. This slide was copied over before they changed Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So we've got Microsoft 365 Defender, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and Microsoft Sentinel in here, making up this entire exam. So with about a quarter of it being Microsoft 365 Defender, another quarter to a third being Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and then really, like I said, about half of it being Microsoft Sentinel. A lot, and this is really security operations. You really need to understand and have some hands-on knowledge around Custo query language, and being able to do, being able to run Custo queries within log analytics to do, to do investigations and things like that. It's really a really nice, really neat exam, I guess. Really in-depth exam if you really like getting into threat, threat analysis and threat detection and all of those things. And this really hits those compute applications and data, that whole area, and analyzing, event logging and activity that's taking place in there. So, some things to know and to understand within here is Microsoft Learn has all the information that you need. You can go into Microsoft Learn. I think if I just did. Oh, no, here we go. What redirected me. As I was saying, if you go in here, you can go in, find those skills measured. You can see, if they've changed, you can download the exam guide, and Microsoft Learn provides everybody with the capabilities in here for for the training path. Now, as I've stated, as I've told a lot of people in the past, Microsoft Learn is provide you with all the information that you need specifically around each of the objectives, but unless it's a fundamentals exam, like I can tell anybody that, if you're a visual learner, you can definitely pass a fundamentals exam using Microsoft Learn. If it's an associate or an expert exam, you definitely need to have a little bit of hands-on. So you need to get into the portals. You need to set up some of the services, because you're going to have step through type questions potentially in the exams that are going to test your understanding of implementation. So, being able to describe everything, fundamentals exams are very straightforward from that standpoint, but understand that there are learn modules for all the associate exams, but make sure that you're getting some hands-on as you're preparing. And just to kind of follow up and wrap this up, I recommend, even though fundamentals is not a required exam or a prerequisite for any associate exam, it's good to start with fundamentals, especially since if you've never taken a Microsoft exam before. It's a little more than half the price of an associate or an expert exam, and it gives you an idea at least of the test taking procedures with a little less stress on you. So keep that in mind, as well as it gives you a very broad brush. So if you're not sure which direction you're going to take after, what you're going to do, taking a fundamentals of any of the Microsoft 365, Azure, Power Platform, Dynamics, Security, taking any of those gives you an idea of where you might want to go forward, and then you can pick your path. And then again, pick your study method. Microsoft Learn, whether you want to, whether you're going to do self-study, on demand. There's a lot of on-demand sites, a lot of on-demand training out there, or doing an instructor-led course. If you're with a Microsoft partner, Microsoft's doing a lot of partner-led training capabilities. There's also their ESI program that a lot of partners subscribe to. So if you are with a Microsoft partner, you might want to ask your partner, your Microsoft Alliance Manager, if your company's part of the ESI program, because you can get discounts on training. Some free training is available, as well as even discounts on exams, also with your company email address. So that about does it for me. I blitzed through it pretty quick, but I wish I could share more information about the SC100 exam, but I'm really excited about that one, about having an expert security exam. So open it up for some questions, because I know I left some time for questions as well. If anybody has any specific questions around security path or training or anything like that, I'm happy to share. Don't be afraid to speak up, guys. It's a community here for us all. Yeah. Anyone's got questions? Don't be scared. I'm a teacher, so I'm a teacher for Microsoft, so happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I think we've got one there from Shaq.
Have somebody's hand up. Yeah.
Good afternoon. If I can ask a question that is not necessarily security, but kind of on the cloud path, for somebody who's wants to, if this question is doesn't pertain to topic, my apologies, but the question I'm trying to ask is, for someone who's starting their cloud journey, I've been reading online and just my own research, like networking is very important. So I just wanted to ask if you could, and again, if this doesn't pertain to this, my apologies. I can take it offline if you'd prefer. Should I continue, or should I do, or is this not pertaining?
Go ahead. Ask your question. Go ahead.
So, like, for someone who needs to know their networking fundamentals is not strong, but yet they want to go on this cloud path, what would you say is better? Would it be Network Plus, or would it be CCNA? I'm not trying to bring those into this discussion, but just for someone who wants to start a cloud journey.
if you're just trying to get the foundational, I would not recommend CCNA. I would like any of the CompT is like, yeah, Network Plus. There's actually some good LinkedIn Learning modules on networking fundamentals that I've been involved with Microsoft's military program, MSSA, and we've put LinkedIn Learning topics in there just to give a foundational networking. So I would recommend definitely LinkedIn Learning would probably be a really good step. I think there's even Pluralsight has some base networking courses. You don't really need necessarily a networking certification to get into cloud. Just understanding it all would be helpful. If you want a certification, I'd say Network Plus would probably be a good path. CCNA is very Cisco specific and is not really, doesn't really give you, it gives you very deep, it's more of a professional level certification than necessarily one that you might need if you're just trying to understand networking before you get into, before you get into Azure certifications.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, no, I think that was a really good question there, because I think some people sometimes struggle to know where to start.
Yeah, I get a lot of those questions on social media and everything. It's always where do I start? I want to get into the cloud. Where do I start first?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, guys. Anyone else got any questions? Feel free to speak up. Nobody. Okay, we've got just a couple of minutes before Radu comes on. I'd like to thank you, Dwayne. That was fantastic talk. Some said
have me. Yeah, if you want to, when the SC100 comes back, if you want to have me back to talk deeply about that one, I'll be happy to.
No, absolutely. It's been a long time coming with that expert exam. It's one that I've been waiting for it for a couple of years. Yeah, kind of AZ 500, MS 500 were interesting exams, but having a proper security path is brilliant now, and having an expert exam within that is even better. I think I just saw a question pop up actually in the chat.
So if you missed the beginning, so the SC100 exam is actually a not yet released architect expert exam for the Microsoft security path. So it will that and I'll go back to that slide real quick just for everybody before we close out. I'll find that. It's all the way at the beginning. There we go. So we've got, if you have any of these any one of these 4 associate level certifications and you take that SC100 exam, when it comes out, you will get a security expert badge. So you will get the nice 3-star badge in security from Microsoft, which I'm very much looking forward to having.
And specifically there, Dwayne, just looking at that, the SC900s, you have to have that, do you?
No. We just, when we show the path, we always put that there. But yeah, the SC900 is never, the fundamentals exams are never a prerequisite to any exam.
Okay, brilliant.
So yeah, just go associate over when we're thinking about what the requirements are to get the expert badge.
The only thing I was
just Microsoft when they show these slides, they always want to put the fundamentals on there, get their extra dimes.
The only other thing I was going to say, Dwayne, is about the ninja path that happens within the tech community. Have you had much to do with that side of things?
I have not. I know there is a ninja path. I've got it saved actually in my inbox to look a little bit more into it, because I know they did some updates on it for after the first of the year, and I haven't gotten too deep into it, but it looks like it's a lot of fun. So definitely recommend looking into that if you want to But yeah, that's more of a community-based, fun certificate kind of thing. But it does, does a lot of deep diving. If you're trying your SC200 path, it has a lot. I know it has a lot of Sentinel in it, so that you can help you with some of the preparation for some of these other exams too.
I was going to say some of the ones I've looked at and attempted are very kind of good from a training perspective, because they're very detailed path, and that's all within the tech community from Microsoft. So real worth. Very much worth.
Yeah, if you just like do Microsoft Security Ninja in your search browser, you should be able to find it through a tech community article.
Right. Is there any other questions? Take that as a note. That's brilliant, Dwayne. Really, really good session. Really appreciated that. It was, yeah.
No problem. You're very welcome anytime.
We'll definitely have you back when the SC100 comes. Be looking for some tips.
Yeah, give you some tips. Can't share the questions I'm writing with you.
No,
sorry.
If only.
Have you got a rough idea, Dwayne, when that's going to go into beta?
I don't. I would say probably a couple months away. This is the first time I've been involved in the exam writing. So, but I know I've been doing some of the objective updates, and I think it takes a couple months once we do these for it to get out. So I would say hopefully maybe the spring, early summer, May, June timeframe, I would think.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to that one. I think that'll be good one to go for. And hopefully, I'm presuming it's going to encompass quite a few of the other areas into one.
It's pretty broad. It's definitely a broad brush. I've seen the objective domain because we've been writing questions to it, and very similar to if you think about the AZ 305, the architect the design exam for the architect expert. It's like that, but specifically around security, around everything, whether it's Microsoft 365 or Azure. It gets very detailed around all of that.
Brilliant. Sounds really, really good. Okay, has anyone got anything to add? Any questions while we've got our experts weighing in? Okay, guys, just want to mention again, obviously we've got our social media quiz there. The text is in the chat. All the names I'm just working my way through as people are posting them, and that'll be drawn later on after Radu is on. Just hopefully.
Yes, I'm here. Hi guys.
He's here. Hi, you okay?
Yeah, we are. I'm good, thank you. Hello, thank you very much for the invitation. So, can we start, or do you want to add something more before it?
No, go ahead, Roddy. It's great to have you here on board.
Perfect. Okay. Hi, hello, everybody. For the next 45 minutes, and I just was checking my clock, because usually I can talk about this subject 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. It's about what was the impact of COVID-19, especially in 2020 and in the second part of 2021, and what are the most important actions that an organization can take or should take to be able to mitigate it and to ensure that they're not exposed to all the risks that automatically appear with working from home, more remote working, and through their increasing speed of their digitalization strategy. So my name is Radu Vonvulea. I'm Group Head of Cloud inside Endava. I'm also Microsoft Azure MVP. I am Microsoft RD. And what is relevant, I think, in this topic is that my first production Azure project went live in 2010, and starting from then, I was involved almost 95% of my time in different cloud projects in the health industry, and especially in automotive and financial sector. So let's see where we are now from COVID-19 cloud and security point of view. Cloud adoption of digitalization has increased with around 55% in the last 7 years, but especially in the last 2 years, the level of adoption increased more than expected. This means that the strategy of all of different organizations, the time that they had to prepare for digitalization and to secure their environment was smaller and smaller. 0.5% has to accelerate cloud migration during the pandemic. Think about, for example, cloud migration and cloud adoption programs that used to or were planned for 2 or 3 years time span had to go in production and to be fully migrated in 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months. And this put a lot of pressure, not only inside the organization, but also on their IT department, on their third party that were providing this kind of services. And usually this is pretty okay when you're talking about only 1 or 2 organizations that would like to increase their speed. But when all the companies are doing the same, hunting for experts, it's pretty hard. And building secure systems and to ensure that you're covering all the aspects and also to make the busy stakeholder happy can be a real challenge. What is very interesting, especially starting from March 2020, that around 60% of the organization addressed cloud cybersecurity posture as a result of distributed workforces. And it's something that I think that most of us felt or were part of this change of way of working and change of way how different companies accept working from home, remote working, and things like that. And the priority for 2021 for the last year, in most of the cases, were to build a secure remote work workforce, and also migrate from infrastructure as a service features and services to a more software as a service and PaaS services. And this was something natural because once you've done a lift and shift, you wanted to go more closer to software as a service. But one of the things that motivated organization to go on more cloud native services was also security, because the security that you get from the cloud vendors as an out of the shelf service is much better than the one that you need to manage by yourself to ensure that you are doing all the updates, how you do the hot fixes in any kind of security leak, and so on. But let's see what was direct impact, especially inside the organization. And I have some numbers especially for the EU. For example, the number of cyber attacks in EU in 2020 and 2021 until the third quarter increased with 250%. Normally, you would see an increase with around 20, 25, let's say maximum of 40%. 250, it was huge. It means that the cybersecurity teams had to deal with a lot of attacks, a lot of challenges, and identifying new ways how different endpoints of the organization were attacked. Almost 300% increase of large-scale breaches in 2020, and in 2021 didn't decrease, but I think that we started to use with things like that. And the best example here, I think that especially in the last 12 or 18 months, we were very used, and we are very used to hear every 1, maximum 2 weeks of one large data breach for a big player on the market. So this is very, very common to hear about, let's say, Fortune 500 company that they had a data breach or their data leaked and now are available on the internet or on the dark market and so on. And in most cases, we don't even know that data leaks appear only after a few months or maybe after a few years. Now, let's talk about us, the people that are working from a computer most of our time. And what is interesting that around 50% of individuals that are working from home fall for phishing scams in the last 18 months. It means that I'm here. This is me. This is Radu, and this is you. It means at least one of two of us fall into a phishing scam in the last 18 months, and that's crazy. Now, don't think about phishing scams only the scams when they are collecting your credit card information and things like that. No, a phishing scam also can be when, without being aware of, you're entering your personal data to another system that is collecting this data, and from the appearance point of view, they are not the one that they are saying. And especially at the beginning, I don't know about you, but there were a lot of organizations started to limit access, especially for different online video streaming platforms and online meeting systems, because they realized that scaling up and using them very intensive was not secure enough, or they had a lot of data breaches. Phishing attack increased by 350%. And something could happen, especially in the end in 2020, and I was very happy to see that, is that most of the large organizations started to invest more resources and more time in education, not only in building a more secure environment to add extra layers of security and so on, but also they started to educate their people to ensure that their teams, their employees, can identify more easily when an email is not a genuine email and might be a phishing attack and things like that. And I think that in the last 2 years, I fall in one simulated phishing attack made by one of the organizations that I'm working with. Basically, they are doing simulation, and you don't know when they are doing a simulated phishing attack to your email address, to your other communication channels or systems that you're using. I think the first 2 or 3 months when they started to do something like that, I fall into one, and after that I started to be more and more careful about what kind of information I'm receiving from which channels and so on. And I found this is very, very useful, because until then, there were different security aspects that they were taking into account, different, let's say, trainings and things like that, but the investment in these kind of things was not so high as expected. And talking about video conferences, almost 500,000 of people from February to May 2020 were affected by breaches where personal data of video conference users was stolen and sold on the dark web. And how this happened? Well, there were some streaming and conference and online events that were using behind the scenes platforms where, for example, users were able to see other attendees information like name, email address, phone number, location, and so on. Of course, on top of that, um, others were able to create bots and to create even fake events or posts that were joining not one or two, but let's say 50 or 100, 200 events every day, and they were collecting data about people, building different profiles that later on were sold on the web. Think about, for example, that we would have a bot that would join our event and we'll try to fetch as much as possible information related to each of us. And in this case, what I can see from each of you is only the name, nothing more than that. And you might say, well, name it's okay, but in some cases, if I'm joining specific type of events, I can start to make your profile based on what you like to do, what kind of things you might want to buy, and so on, and automatically to put you in a specific page. Now, what about cloud? What happened from the cloud point of view? And let's talk in general to all the CSPs and also on Microsoft Azure. The increase in cloud workloads per region was around 65, 70%. Yeah, APAC and for APAC and the EMEA was 70%, followed by AMER and Japan with 65 and 58%. Now, what is interesting here, it's not the increasing cloud workload per region, because this is something that all of us expected, but it's more the increasing cloud workloads by industry. Retail increased with 60%. And I don't know about you, but nowadays, at least in Romania, in the country where I'm based in, I think that at least in our case, we are doing more than 75, 80% of our shopping online, except the grocery that almost everything is now almost everything is now done online. And from the insurance point of view, people used to go in a mall or in the bank to do their personal insurance, the house, their own, for the health, for the car, and so on. Nowadays, almost everything from the insurance point of view is done online, and there were a lot of insurance companies that were forced in 6 months' time to migrate to do their full digitalization story to be able to provide all their services online, and that was crazy. And the biggest increase was on chemical manufacturing. And what is interesting on the chemical manufacturing, because if you're not in that industry, we might not be aware of, but they're using a lot of computation for different simulations and so on. And the load that they needed to increase their capacity to do more studies about different reaction or how different substances will react in different cases increased drastically. And what happened was, for example, in March, April 2020, at least in Europe, the capacity of Microsoft Azure regions, and I'm talking about the public one, was limited. So if you didn't have reserved instances, chances to spin up specific type of resources and workloads was limited or restricted, because most of the resources were reserved for governments, for different companies from the healthcare and chemical manufacturing and so on. Maybe you remember about this data breach happened, I think, in 2017 on Vim. What happened behind the scene? Vim was using database that was hosting and running inside the AWS. Everything was very, very secure, and the backup was done on an AWS S3. The backup was encrypted. Everything was checked except one thing. The AWS S3 endpoint was unsecure. And for a specific number of hours, anybody from the internet was able to download the backup. Well, you might say, well, the backup is encrypted, is kept safe, strong password is set, and so on. I remember when I joined the last Ignite, 2015, 2016, I joined a security session, showed to us in 90 minutes time how you can break an SQL backup to replace the original password with another password, and after that to do the full restoration of the database to be able to access the data. Meaning that if you put your hands on the backup, you can find ways using tools that are publicly available on the internet to be able to access the content of the database. And another use case that is very, very common is that we create a secure environment. We have the repository, the CI/CD pipelines, everything nowadays are very, very secure. But sometimes we are forgetting that the development machine or the DevOps machine that is used, especially when our teams are working from home, might not be secure enough. And if a breach is happening, if their account is compromised, their machine can be the breach, can be the jumper that would provide access to a person to the CI/CD environment, to the repository, and so on. And this is important, especially if that person have the roles that would allow him access to prod environment or the environment where customer real data exists, or where there are some accounts key or some database key that would provide access to the prod and to the customer environment. Now, one of the challenges when we're talking about cloud and talking about security is that there are a lot of aspects that we need to take into account. From the layer point of view, we have the cloud platform protection, we have the cloud product protection, the data protection, and the cloud environment protection. For some of them, we have control more or less. For others, we have the control, we have the tools, but it's all the time the risk that the customer would say that it is too expensive, or they would accept the risk. And even if when they say that they accept the risk, when something happens, it's still a challenge for you to be able to ensure that you are mitigating in the best way what is happening behind the scene. Now, what we can do, what are the tools, what are the mechanisms to be able to protect the system and to build secure environment and to have a healthy organization that can ensure that they are keeping their data and their employee and their customers as safe as possible. There are some simple things that can be done to avoid disasters, or at least to minimize the footprint and the impact on a security breach that can happen inside the organization. The first thing, and I think that this is very common, and last summer maybe you heard about some security breaches that happen with Azure Cosmos DB and with the Jupyter notebooks. And why that breach happened was because customers were using some features that were in public preview. And what I think that many times people are forgetting about what are the difference between private preview, public preview, and GA, general availability, and what are the things that Microsoft Azure is offering for each of them. When we're talking about the private preview, you have no SLAs, you have no formal support. It's not recommended to use that service or that feature in production. After that, we have the public preview. Everybody can join the private preview, but you have no SLAs. It's almost ready for prod, but sometimes you not have the clear timeline when it will go in GA, or there might be still some issues that were not identified or were not yet fixed fully. Only when a service in GA has full support from the SLA point of view, and there is a support team from Microsoft side. And what is the main recommendation from Microsoft and what we should do all the time? Only the GA services and features to use in prod. Now, I would say that in most of the cases this is happening, but many times I see customers that are and teams that might forget about that, or because they are using a service, they are forgetting to check also about each feature that they are using, it is in GA or in a public preview, especially when a feature is in a public preview for more than a few months. So I've seen features in a public preview, for example, for 6 months, 1 year, or even 3 or 4 years. And especially technical team are forgetting about, well, wait, this is still in public preview and we shouldn't use in a prod, or they're saying to the customer that that's safe, we can go forward. How you can check this? And you will find that on the list of services that Microsoft is providing, each service that is in public preview at least have a small tag that is that specify that the service it is in preview. Also, don't forget to check on each service if the feature that you are planning to use or you are using, it is in public preview or it is in GA, and be very careful, because sometimes you have the timeline when they will go in GA, and maybe you say, okay, we are in the development phase for dev and test environment for the next 6 months or 3 months. It is safe to use that feature because we know that it will go live on 4th of December. It will go in GA in 1st of December, and we will go live in 1st of January, and that's fine. But otherwise, be very careful with what kind of services, what kind of features you're deciding to use. The second thing that we need to invest and to be aware of is on education, as I said, with phishing attacks and the things that organizations are starting to do. And many times we are forgetting and we are ignoring it. We are investing maybe a lot of resources to do the education of our teams in the IT, maybe also in the financial department. But also there are all other departments that even if they're not using cloud directly or they're not doing the back office for the cloud, they are still using services that are hosted inside cloud. And they need to be aware about what cloud means, what is the impact from the security point of view, what are the things that they should be aware of, and how they should be aware in the case of an attack, how they could detect it, how they could report it, and what are the first actions that they should do if they suspect that their account was compromised, their machine was compromised, or when they notify that the system behaves in a strange way. And in general, I say that the first thing that an organization can do is also from the security point of view, except improving their security system, is to educate their employee and their users. That can be internally or externally. Except the learning path, for example, the one that was presented before that are focusing on security and are focusing and are built for technical people. Also, we have some learning paths for non-technical people, both on Microsoft Azure, on AWS, and also similar ones on GCP. And I highly recommend for people that are using cloud services, even if they're not technical, to cover at least the basic trainings that are for non-technical people, to understand the core concepts and the way how the systems that they're using are running and are consuming cloud. The third thing that we can do, and it is related to identity and access management. And a very common mistake that I'm seeing even nowadays is using master users, especially for databases and for specific service. And this is pretty crazy. Basically, the classical username and password, admin, let's say in this way, it's used. And it's still used for databases. It means that if somebody puts their hands on their credentials, they will be able to access the database. They will be able to very easily to restore a backup. They will be very easily just to go and modify the data or modify the behavior of the systems. The second thing that is very, very common is the account master key or the master tokens. For example, the Azure Storage account keys, the keys to access other type of storages or cache and so on. And even if we have the capability to use, for example, shared access signature and tokens, that the lifetime is much less, or limits the actions that you can do on different storages. People prefer to use the account master keys or the master user and so on. Until when your system is compromised, until only then you realize, well, also I have other tools. And except the one that I presented all already, we also, for example, we have Azure Role-Based Access Control, that we'll talk a little bit later. Now, what are our options? First of all, are the policies, Azure AD Role-Based Access Control. And I highly recommend to use it as much as possible, to try to use it 100%. If, for example, all the services that you're using are fully supporting role-based access control and you can use it without any kind of limitation, go with it. The downside and why not all the projects and all the system are using it, because the integration curve to the system, it's a little bit longer. It consumes a lot of resources, time, and also budget, especially from infrastructure and DevOps teams, to be able to do all the configuration, to do all the setup and so on. But once you've done the setup, you can take your hands from the system. The second thing, especially for storages, when you're failing internally to other subsystems or to other components and to externally, avoid to provide full access to the storage. And Azure Shared Access Signature is a very good example how you can do it in a different way. Why? Because it provides a limited time access to a specific Azure storage resource, and only for specific operation times. And also you can even specify a list of IPs that you are putting in the whitelist from where this can be requested. One thing that we should be aware of Shared Access Signature and Shared Access policies is that they are generated using Azure Storage Account Key 1 or Key 2. And why this is important is that at the moment in time when these tokens are generated, you don't need to have a connection to Azure Storage. So you can generate these tokens on the fly, and you will just use a little bit of computation power. No internet connection. There's no latency to make a request to the Azure Storage or to a backend system and so on. So very easily you can build a system. And in my previous life in 2016, I remember that together with one of my team that were working with me during that time, we built a system that was generating around 100,000 shared access signature per minute. So our peaks were 100,000 shared access signature per minute that were generated for different storages. Everything was done on the equivalent of 2 normal Azure VMs. They were different services, but from the computation point of view, they were very similar to Azure virtual machines and normal one, not the ones that were very expensive and so on. Also, we need to limit the anonymous public read access and to ensure that we are enabling all the firewall rules. And why it's important to keep in mind the firewall rules? Because it's not enough just to enable the firewall rules, especially with working from home. And if our employees, our teams are using all the time VPN, then we already know what are the ranges of IPs that our employees will use to be able to access different Azure storages, Azure systems, and so on. So you can automatically predefine the list of the IPs that you allow access and to reduce the exposure to an attack. Now, 1 or 2 minutes I want to focus on role-based access control because I want to be sure, and the takeover from this session, for me at least, is role-based access control, and to ensure that tomorrow all of us will take a look on the system that we are using, the systems that are using in Azure, and we'll try at least one of them to migrate to role-based access to migrate to role-based access control. There are 3 components, 3 items in role-based access control that we should be aware of. First of all, is this a security principle? Security principle is the system or the person that which you give access to a specific resource and for specific action. Can be a user, can be a group, but also at the same time can be a service principle. And what a service principle means can be another Azure service or another system, can be an Azure VM, can be an app service, can be part of a Docker container, can be basically any other request from outside the system that you are providing access. Role is basically what are the operation types that you want to provide access, read, write, and so on. And you can provide us only one of the roles depending on the activities that you would like to do, and the scope. We have the managed groups scope, subscription, but also we have the resource scope. So what does this mean? That we can do a role assignment and specify that an Azure VM or a specific instance of an app service has the right to do only read operation on a specific tables in Azure SQL that we are allowing to do. So basically, we can have a subsystem to be able to access Azure SQL and only a part of the table or the full table from 10 or 20 tables that the database might have. This can be done very easily with Azure role-based access control and automatically limit the surface attack and the risk in a case of data breach. Worst case is the app service is compromised, and basically your system is running an app service is compromised. In worst case, the attacker would gain access only to the table or only to that tables that app service had access, and only in read mode, without being able to modify the data or to trigger any actions, and so on. Sticker scanning is very important, and nowadays it's very easy to do it. So basically, I'm just giving an example of the tool that can be used is Git Secret. If you didn't use it until now, it would take you, I would say, 2 or 3 minutes to download the tool, to do the registration of the planning of the plugin for Azure, for AWS, or for GCP, and after that to do the scan. And related to the scan, there are some things that you can do and you can play around. You can do a scan for secrets before a push, and to reject the push if you identify that somebody is trying to push a secret, but also we have the ability to integrate in the pipeline, for example, in the nicely scan or in the build pipeline, and at the moment in time when a secret is detected, to do a build failed. And something nice that I've seen was the following. One of the projects had the scan commit before a push active. Nevertheless, if a member of the team during 4 weeks' time had 3 times a secret that he was trying to push in the repo, automatically his account was blocked. And to be able to re-enable the account, he had to open a ticket to their internal IT team and so on. So they even went to that to that side that they were counting how many times you were not respecting the policy, and if you had 3 times per month that policy breach, then automatically they were blocking your account. Now, let's go a little bit forward, and let's talk about tracing and monitoring. This is another important thing that we need to do. Once things happen, we need to be able to trace. We need to understand what happened behind the scene. And during a fast adoption of cloud and migrating very fast all the services, all the payload and so on to the cloud itself, people were relying only on the application logs, on the logs that were provided by the application, but they were forgetting that beside this, the cloud vendor also is providing, like Microsoft Azure, is also providing audit and logs information related to each service. Also, you have the ability to trace what is happening at the virtual network layer and so on. So basically, you have the ability, and you need to take and to collect all this information and put them under the same pool to be able to identify what is happening. So you have the metrics, you have the log, you have the audit information at all levels: our application, operating system, resource, subscription, and tenant. And all of them are very important, because if you want to understand later on what happened during an attack, what kind of data were stolen and things like that, you need to have the big picture view and to be able to go in details from all different perspectives to see exactly what system was compromised and what was done during that period of time. What are the tools? What we can do to be able to protect ourselves? We have, for example, the shared capabilities, like, for example, alerts, the Magic Explorer, and so on. We have the core monitoring part, especially the one related to Azure, the Azure monitoring and the activity log, and especially when an account is compromised, that is also managing the Azure services from production or other environment. Activity log gives you that insight to see exactly what kind of changes were done, especially from the secure configuration ones. Also, we have the deep infrastructure monitoring, like log analytics, network monitoring, and the service map. And the one that are more specific to the application and what is happening, the smart one are the application inside, and Microsoft, and basically Security Center and Defender that nowadays are Microsoft Defender. The tool that I really love is Microsoft Defender, because it's very easily for cloud team to be able to monitor and to ensure that their systems are respecting the best practices and the security recommendation that Microsoft Azure is providing. So, from the logs point of view and the audit information, there are 3 dimensions. There are 3 types of logs that we need and events that we need to be aware of. The first one are the process events, followed by data plane logs and control and management logs. And all of them are collecting inside Azure monitoring logs, but we need to remember and to ensure that we have the right dashboards that are providing us the capability to monitor them, to know exactly what is happening behind the scene, what is behavior of different users, of different profiles, and so on. What else we can do? We can first of all secure our public endpoints and to protect through firewall and so on. And we need to don't forget about OAuth protection and the services that Microsoft Azure is providing to us. And WAF is the best example here, because what we can do through WAF is, for example, if we are building a system, we have users on one side, we have our, let's say, our website, which is providing different services. If we want to protect on OAuth, a classical approach was to secure it at the endpoint level using different libraries, tools, and so on. But through WAF, we have the ability to externalize this and to put in front of our app service or in front of our endpoint this protection that is automatically managed and is provided out of the shelf by Microsoft. And in the case of an attack, there's one additional layer between us and the attacker itself. Just a few days ago, I was in a discussion and somebody was complaining about the cost high cost of the application gateway, of WAF, and so on. And if you're in this kind of discussions, what you can do is just to do a very simple estimation. What would be the cost to run an appliance, a virtual appliance, that is fully managed by the customer, where you would have at least 2 virtual machines, plus the cost of the security system to be able to provide the same security level. And very easily, once you're starting to do this simulation, you're putting the cost of the cost of the machines plus the cost of the manage and operationalizing and so on. You'll end up and you have a much better image, and you realize that the cost of application gateway and WAF it's not so high as you would expect it. And the last thing that we should do more is to integrate the built-in security system and rely less on custom dashboards. And this is happening especially when we're doing fast migration and adoption of cloud. And because of the lack of time and knowledge, you're trying to do in the same way as you would do on on-prem system. But this is not all the time the best way, because you're forgetting about, I like to call it state-of-the-art system, because this is how I see this kind of system. For example, Microsoft Defender has including the AI in part of it that can automatically do your not only secure scoring and provide you where you're not following different best practices from the security point of view, but also can do full compliance checks, especially, for example, if you're in the financial service in the payment gateway sector, you have the PCI DSS that can be automatically checked, or the SOC or the ISO. And not only they are following all the sections from the compliance and specify exactly which one you are not fully compliant, but also they are providing out-of-the-shelf mechanisms, for example, running a script or some steps in a logic app that would automatically fix the problem that you will have. And this is pretty awesome. And the last one is not fully related to security, but it's a tool that we should be aware of and very useful, especially if you're doing also and you're playing with the cost function. is Azure Advisor that provides you recommendations and to align with the cloud best practices that are provided for Azure by Microsoft for all the 5 dimensions: that reliability, security, performance, cost, and operational excellence. And here I would like just to give you an example. Through Azure Advisor, when I was doing an audit of one of the customers that I was helping, only through Azure Advisor, in I think in half an hour, we identify how we can do a cost saving of around 5,000 euros per month, based on not only on the service that we're not using, but he had some specific instances of services which tier was much higher than the one he needed. What are my final thoughts? First of all, keep in mind, even if you're using GCP, AWS, or Microsoft Azure, that each of them are providing a well-architected framework in one way or another that comes with very strong recommendations related to security. Depending on the project context, it's very easy to say, well, these are not applicable for me, or are too complex, or the data that I'm managing are not so sensitive. Nevertheless, try to take a look on the security assessment that is provided for free at least in the Microsoft case. Take a look on the best practices and recommendation, and ensure that you're following them, or you are discussing to the customer and decide which ones needs to be implemented, and if you decide some of them don't need to be implemented, ensure that the customer understands what are the risks and what can happen in the case a breach would happen. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you have questions or like to find more about this topic, this is the best time when we could have talk.
Adi, thank you for the presentation. I think we did have a couple of questions. Andrew, do you want to come off mute and ask your question? Okay, I'll ask it for him. Any tips or recommendations are hardening email filters security settings that might be worthwhile right now?
From the security settings, the first recommendation that I would have: ensure that you're following the best practices that are provided by the email provider, or by the Office 365 and so on. And another thing that you should do would be go on the market onto an external audit company and ask them to make a full audit of your email system that you are using, but don't do an internal audit. Why I'm saying this? Because I find it. I had some past experience in the last year on organizations done on an internal audit of their email solution. They were not able to find anything. That's why they went on the market to another vendor, requested them an audit, and they come up with very clear list of things that they need to improve. There are a lot of tools on the market. Depends a lot on what kind of provider you are using. In the case of Office 365 and Exchange, if you're using on-prem nowadays, most of the features are coming out of the shelf, and you can automatically activate it.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else got any questions? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you particularly Radu for your presentation. Appreciate your time.
No, thanks Radu. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for inviting me, and enjoy the day.
Thank you.
Great. So, obviously, as we mentioned before, and I've popped the link into the chat, and also kind of on our social medias, you'll find Radu's Twitter handle and also Dwayne's Twitter handle as well, just so you can give these guys a follow because they're great to follow. So again, just really our feedback form. It's all really new to us, so it'd be great to kind of get some feedback and hear what you liked, what you didn't like, and whether there's any way kind of what kind of sessions you'd like to hear in the future as well. So, and I've posted that link into the chat as well. So, moving on next is we're moving to quiz time. So, in a minute we'll run the quiz. I'm going to hand over to Chris in a second. Did you want to do the social media draw before the quiz or after?
Yeah, I'll do the social media draw now.
Cool. Right, I'll hand over to you to.
Okay.
Present. Present your screen, mate.
Yeah, can you see that now?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thanks everyone who's entered our quiz, our social media competition tonight. So I've entered all your names in here. What I'll do, just so you can all see, I'm just shuffling it randomly, just so there's no one accusing me of anything. Okay, and we'll see who's won tonight's prize of the Lego. Okay, and it's Dwayne, our speaker from earlier on. So I'll get in touch with Dwayne and we'll get the prize over to him. So well done, Dwayne. I know you've had to drop, being over the other side of the ocean, or the sea, or yeah, it is an ocean, isn't it? So we'll get in touch with him. So what we're going to do now is just going to move on to our quiz. Let me just get this. A second. There we go. Okay, guys, if you go over to menti.com and enter the code that you can see at the top of the screen for us. Everyone seem okay joining the... I really hope.
I found a cool heart button that I can spam your screen with.
There's a surprise. Dean will be up to no good.
I tell you what, mine's the brown one. Someone else has found it.
It's all about sharing the love. So I hope this works. Okay, so I presume that means we've got 10 people in.
Go to the next screen. I think there's a QR code.
What's that? Can't get on the next screen.
Your arrow keys not do anything when you
No, Dean, no.
Oh dear.
This could be an absolute disaster.
Do you want me to share mine?
If you could, Dean, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
If you're okay to do it for us.
Yeah. You close that down and won't let me share while close the website, yeah. Yeah, it works for me. Let me just. Oh, I'm not an organizer, so I can't share my screen.
I'm sure Charlie can give you access.
Yeah. Just a sec. Oh,
I obviously won't participate.
you know, have an advantage over everyone, Dean.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I'll have to have a little look at that and a little play around for next time. Thanks, team, for jumping in and saving the day.
It's not saved yet. Let's see if it works. We dropped down to 6 by the looks of it, so not sure if that's.
Back up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Any more for any more?
Okay. I think we'll start there, team.
Yep.
Oh, one more just slipped in there. Okay, what does SIEM stand for? It's a security incident and event monitoring, system information and event monitoring, security information and event management, or system information and exchange matrix. Some people know this stuff there. 6 people correctly answered. Okay, question 2. The faster you answer these, the more points you get. So what are the Microsoft Zero Trust principles? Always verify, limit blast radius, automate response, don't trust, know your architecture, authenticate everywhere, verify explicitly, use least privilege, assume breach. Well done, guys. Okay, question 3. How many estimated daily security signals do Microsoft process? This is up to June 2021. 24 trillion, 10 quadrillion, 2 trillion, or 300 billion? Well done to them too out there. Yeah, it's 24 trillion. Which exam do you need to take to get the title of Security Operations Analyst Associate? Is it the SC300, the SC400, the SC200, or the MS500? So I think you've got a good chance of this if you were listening on earlier on. And it's the SC200. Okay, question 5. What was Defender for Cloud previously called? Microsoft Cloud App Security, Azure Defender and Azure Security Center, Defender for Azure, or Microsoft Defender for Cloud Endpoints?
That is a harsh question.
It depends what date we ask as well, doesn't it? Brilliant, well done. It's Azure Defender.
Changes on a monthly basis with Microsoft when it comes to Defender.
Yeah.
Okay, well done, guys. Okay, so we'll have a quick look at the leaderboard. And we've got Banny out in front. Oh, it's still pretty close up there. Okay, playing for £40 Amazon gift card and some swag. Which license SKU do you need for privileged identity management? Azure ADP 1, Azure ADP 2, EMS E3, or M365 E3?
Love licensing questions. Thanks.
Well, that's why it's in here, just for you, Dean. Well done, guys. It's Azure AD P2. And question 7. Which license SKU do you need for privileged identity management? Why have we got this in twice? So
I've only got one button I can press to move slide. I've not got this wrong. I pressed right.
Well, everyone should get this one right. And still people got it wrong.
It comes up again, we're in trouble.
What is not a feature of Defender for Endpoint P1 on a Windows 10 device? Block at first sight, web content filtering, endpoint detection and response, or tamper protection?
These are really good.
Nasty one as well.
It is endpoint detection and response. Well done to the 2 that got that. Okay, and we'll see if there's any change in the leaderboard. Skids had a good jump there, but Banny's still out on top. Okay, question 9. What service does this icon represent? And you have to type this one. You can either use the abbreviations or the full name. Okay. So the correct answer is NSG. It's a network security group.
There was not a chance I could have typed network security group on my phone in the 10 seconds you gave, just for a bit of feedback.
I'm sure you could have typed NSG though, Dean.
I didn't know what it was. So.
Right, okay, fair enough. Well done to who got that one. And last question. When did Microsoft Sentinel go GA? August 2019, August 2018, September 2018, or September 2019? Some people, it's either a good guess or they knew that answer. So well done to them 5. It was September 2019.
Have you prepared a drum roll for this or not?
I thought you was doing that.
Ah, sorry, but
okay, and we'll announce the winner. Here we go, and it's Banny. So Banny, if you want to drop me a little message in here, or I'll reach out to you, or drop me a quick email on chris@mssug.org. I think I need to remember that one. If you, reach out to me and we'll, I can see you there, James. I'll get in touch with you. Brilliant, and we can we'll get them prizes out to you. I just want to say massive thank you to everyone who's attended this evening. Really appreciate all your support. Also, massive thank you to the guys over at HTG for the support and with regards to the prizes. Massive thank you from us for sponsoring the event. Charlie?
Yeah, no, just to echo that, really, it's been great to have so many people on our first session and looking forward to getting more of these set up. And so we've set the date for the next one, which is going to be in a month's time on the 24th at the same time at 8 p.m. GMT.